Welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into some seriously mind-bending territory today, exploring a 2023 text by Su Feng titled The Nature of Spirit. We are going to examine the author's incredibly unique attempt to bridge the massive, grand structure of the cosmos directly with human consciousness. It's a text that takes these huge, abstract concepts about the universe and ties them intimately to how you and I think, feel, and exist every single day. Now, we aren't here to validate or debunk these ideas. We're simply going to guide you through this fascinating logical framework. It's a journey that fundamentally rethinks how the entire universe operates.
So, the foundation of this entire theory actually boils down to one incredibly simple number: 1 Hertz. According to the text, the entire universe, literally all material movement and all life, is driven by a single continuous heartbeat from what the author calls the greatest creator. And this heartbeat, it pulsates at exactly 1 Hertz. The author actually makes a really striking parallel here, intriguingly equating this 1 Hertz spiritual vibration to the mysterious superstring theorized by modern physicists. In this framework, spirit isn't divided up into different categories or types. There's just one source, one uniform wave penetrating all of time and space, acting as the eternal driving force of everything in existence.
But this single, unified frequency immediately presents a pretty huge logical puzzle. If this 1 Hertz spiritual vibration from the greatest creator is distributed completely evenly across all time and space without losing any power, meaning it's exactly the same everywhere, well, how does the text explain the vastly differing levels of spirituality among people? Why do some individuals seem to have this acute spiritual perception and power, while others seem completely, totally disconnected? If the signal is constant, why on earth is the reception so varied?
Okay, let's dive into this because the author answers that exact question with a brilliant, highly visual metaphor. Imagine a physical drizzle, just a light rain falling from the sky. In this scenario, we place 2 different objects out in the rain, a sponge and an iron block. The sponge is full of hollow spaces, making it incredibly receptive. It just absorbs the water easily, right? The iron block, however, has a completely dense, solid structure. The water just hits it and rolls right off. The author uses this to explain that an object's internal structure entirely determines its capacity to absorb whatever is falling on it.
Let's break down the straightforward physical logic here step by step so we can see exactly where the author is going with this. First, that physical drizzle falls perfectly evenly, just like the 1 Hertz vibration of the greatest creator. Now, simply because of its structure, a hollow object like the sponge inherently absorbs way more of that water. On the flip side, a dense object like the iron block naturally absorbs less despite being exposed to the exact same amount of rain over the exact same surface area. The author is meticulously setting up a comparison here between physical density and our own spiritual capacity.
And this is where it brilliantly illustrates the core psychological claim of the text. We take that physical metaphor of the sponge and the iron block, and we apply it directly to human consciousness, what the author calls the state of the heart. Think of the empty heart as the sponge. A mind that is open and empty can naturally accommodate more. It achieves high resonance with that cosmic vibration, resulting in sharp, brilliant spiritual perception. But then we have the solid heart. Just like that dense iron block, a rigid, heavy mind accommodates much, much less. It has low resonance and dull perception. The text argues that your spiritual power isn't about the universe treating you differently. It's entirely dependent on whether your internal state is hollow enough to receive the signal or so totally solid that it blocks the signal completely.
To really ground this concept of the empty heart, the author turns to ancient wisdom, specifically the Heart Sutra. The text points to Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara as the ultimate historical example of someone who achieved this incredibly hollow, receptive state. By attaining profound wisdom, he realized that all forms and feelings are just illusions. The text highlights a really crucial realization here. When the mind is free from worry, there's no fear, allowing one to distance themselves from delusional dreams. In the author's framework, this state of being entirely free from worry is the exact, literal definition of having an empty and unobstructed mind.
Let's take a closer look at exactly how the text interprets this ancient wisdom. The author extracts a few key principles for us. First, that all forms, feelings, and cognitions are mere illusions. Second, that everything tangible actually originates from the invisible. Third, and this is a big one, our strict human perceptions of things like good versus evil or life versus death actively mislead us. And finally, true freedom only comes from leaving this distorted, illusory world behind. The absolute crucial point the author is making here is that discarding these rigid, illusory human perceptions is exactly how you create that sponge-like emptiness. By doing so, the text claims you can achieve a 100% cosmic resonance with the Creator's spirit, ultimately leading to eternal life.
Okay, now let's pivot to what is honestly the most surprising part of our explainer today. Because once the author establishes this framework, that the universe is a 1 Hz wave and our minds are basically either sponges or iron blocks, the text radically redefines traditional supernatural concepts. It takes ideas that humanity has debated for centuries, strips away all the mythology, and reframes them entirely through this specific lens of cosmic vibrations and mental density. Take the concept of evil spirits, for example. In this text, evil isn't some literal demon with horns hiding in the shadows. It is simply defined as any vibration that directly opposes the 1 Hz spirit of the greatest creator. The text states that these opposing vibrations are everywhere, just filling the void. Even more provocatively, it argues that an individual can actually become an evil spirit simply by confronting or actively opposing this universal wave. It's an entirely mechanical, vibrational definition of evil. It just means being fundamentally out of sync with the universe's baseline frequency.
Then we have the manifestations of bodhisattvas. Typically, we might think of divine manifestations as glowing figures or angelic visits, right? But the author presents a highly unconventional, almost astonishing idea here. According to the text, manifestations are revelations given by the heavens that happen almost every single day, often in the form of extreme weather, sandstorms, super typhoons, floods, droughts, and even bizarre anomalies like snowfall in June. The author explicitly frames these not as mere meteorological events, but as direct divine messages. The natural world itself is literally the medium for the supernatural.
And perhaps the absolute wildest twist is how the text handles spirit possession. While the author does briefly mention departed souls lingering in a space between yin and yang, the ultimate definition of possession here is entirely psychological. The text argues that if you lack your own original thoughts and will, if you solely rely on, reiterate, and judge the world based on the influential thoughts of your ancestors or society, you are literally possessed. By simply parroting the inherited ideas of the past, your mind is being completely hijacked by the spirits of others. Which leads us to a really striking conclusion about society today. Based on that psychological definition of possession, the author makes a sweeping observation about the modern world. Because most people simply reiterate the thoughts, cultures, and viewpoints they inherited from their predecessors, rather than thinking completely independently. The vast majority of modern humanity is actually walking around possessed by spirits. Only a tiny minority, the true independent thinkers with empty minds, are actually their own masters.
So what does this all mean? We've covered some incredibly abstract metaphysical ground here, from 1 Hz universal heartbeats to psychological spirit possession. But let's bring these concepts back down to earth for our ultimate takeaway. The source text doesn't just present this as a theoretical exercise, it offers a highly practical, concluding summary of how the reader is actually supposed to apply this information to their own life right now.
The method the text proposes for connecting with the universe is remarkably straightforward. To utilize the greatest creator's spirit, you must do 3 things. Empty your heart, remove all mental obstructions, and thereby resonate at the exact same frequency as the universe. It all goes right back to the sponge and the iron block. You have to clear your mind of rigid dogmas, worries, fears, and all those borrowed thoughts of others. Once you do, your internal structure becomes hollow enough to absorb that spiritual drizzle that is constantly falling around you.
Which leaves us with a profound question to reflect on based on Xu Feng's logic. Looking at your own life, your own beliefs, and the way you process the world around you, are your thoughts truly your own, making you a receptive, hollow sponge? Or are you a dense, solid iron block simply echoing the inherited ideas of the past and living in a state of possession? It's an absolutely fascinating framework for self-reflection, and one that certainly makes you rethink the nature of your own mind. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning the world around you.